Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm so glad to see you. I'm Dr. Robin Gould, and here you are on LMNetwork.tv, where you are seeing all kinds of programming. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you keep coming back and hearing what the channel has to offer. A lot of good people saying a lot of awesome things. So I just wanted to welcome you and just let you know that the future begins now. And I'm so excited that we can talk today. So we are going to just jump in. Lot to cover, not as much time as we ever want, but I want to start really quickly by just letting you know about an event that's coming and going to take place at the end of May, which is Memorial Day, into the first couple days of June. So it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday event for women. And it's called Move Forward for Women, and it's from the Hanani Institute. And I'm going to actually the website. I should put it in the. I'll put it in the comments. So wherever you're watching this, I'll make sure I get the website link. So you can just click on it, and it'll come right up. But New Covenant Path is my website, and you can always email me there, and you will see the website on there as well. But anyway, this is a wonderful event that my friend and colleague Simonette, we are working together, and we've been putting together this really exciting women's event. And the Hanani Institute is basically something that we founded that's going to minister and serve and train more than just women, right? When we'll have women, we'll have men and couples. We have a bunch of things that are, in progress here, but we're starting with the women, and we're excited for this event. And what we're doing is that what we wanted to offer, what we felt like was needed, that we weren't seeing a lot of, was what we were seeing. And this is not a bad thing. And these are things conferences, right? So I go to conferences, I teach at conferences, I enjoy them. I love teaching, I love being taught. It's fun. I've done 100 of them. I mean, it's really awesome. But a lot of times the format of a conference is going to be like a general assembly with main teachers and then breakouts. And it's a pretty similar pattern because it works and people flow in and out, and people can learn things. And what we felt like was there was not enough things out there in addition to that were experiential and more hands-on. And so we really wanted, I'm a attachment specialist, she's a trauma specialist, and get to know her. She's on the website. She's amazing. And but we felt like we needed more hands-on and a more experiential process for people to learn that way. And I think it's a really exciting and dynamic method. Very fun and transformative at the same time, deep and reflective, personal and communal. And I think we have woven together it was a very structured event, 3 nights, and this is in Butler, Tennessee, at a beautiful. When you go on the website, you can click on the venue, and you'll just see it's a beautiful place. And so people will be comfortable, and we're going to have amazing, perfectly healthy, clean food that and actually it will be safe for gluten-free people, super safe for gluten-free people, but really high quality food, because we really have a very strong conviction, both of us, about offering people the best of everything, the healthiest of everything, and that our healing and recovery from all the things in this world that wound and damage us and confuse us and are difficult, that all of these things, it's our mental state, our spiritual state, our physical state, our emotional state, that these all interplay, right? They all intersect, and they all affect us profoundly, and they all are synergistically on or off, right? And the idea is to get these things on. So we wanted to offer something, particularly with the rough times that we've been having in the world. And just as believers, I mean, we've really had a lot to deal with. And so there's healing and things that are needed. So anyway, I hope you can look into it. It's space is quite limited. We only do 28 women for these. That's it. So that you will be, supported, you know, completely supplied with support. And I really think you'd love it if you're listening to this program and you kind of continue to come back here. I think you're a perfect person to come and check it out. So go on the website, you click under events, and then click under Tennessee, and you'll see that Memorial Day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Those are the dates. So end of May. I keep saying March because we originally were going to do one in March, but we had to change our plans a little bit, as a lot of when new things are starting, right? We had originally way back in months ago talked about the month of March. So anyway, that was got stuck in my head as an M word. And anyway, so I keep saying March, and it's not, it's May. So that is what we were planning on doing for you. So get in touch with me, get in touch, go ahead. You can even register right on the website. So it's hanani.institute.com.org. I have to look. I think it's might even be both, but yeah. So there you go. There's that. I will make sure that you can find the website really easily. We're on Instagram. And so having said that, put that in your prayer list and see if that is something you want to do. And I'm just going to pull up our stuff that we're talking about today. Ooh, I owe my mother $1. I said stuff. It's not a word that I was ever taught. I should say that it didn't sound smart and it didn't sound right. So anyway, okay. So having said that, let's launch into today. So we just had Pesach. I pray you had a good one. I pray you had a wonderful time. Now we're in the Feast of Unleavened Bread, right? And then the Feast of Weeks, right? The counting of the Omer, right? So right now we're counting the Omer. So we have all of that going on right now as we are observing these spring feasts, and they are so meaningful. And really, we could talk for hours just on that. If I'm honest, right? We could really just have a great time. But we're going to just focus on the part of the Brit Hadashah. So that would be what some people call the New Testament. And because I have, like, right now, there's so many amazing temple teachers teaching on, the tithe, and that's what the tithe is about, like D.R.E and Rico Cortez, Joseph Good. I really recommend you go ahead and learn from, these people. These they're all amazing. I have spent more time just proximally because of distance and traveling with Rico and D.R.E, like D.R.E, listening to them. But I have been to a few conferences where Joseph Good teaches, and I mean, he's probably the sage of the temple group, and they all just love him, and he's amazing. He's really amazing. But anyway, so I'm not going to go all into that. So I think, this is where I shift over into that Brit Hadashah to talk about a couple of points and excavate some points and try to help us understand Yeshua in ways that might be a little bit different than maybe the historical background a lot of people come from, and from different religious systems. And we want to do this without a snarky attitude and without I'm angry, I might not have known these things or whatever. We're not doing that. But what we are is we're just literally moving forward. The future begins now, right? So we're always going to be moving forward. So they portion out the Brit Hadashah, and they, of course, they have the Haftarah and the Torah, and we cycle through this every year, just in case you're new. And this week it's John 20:15 through 20, and I'm going to link it to something in Matthew because I find that something kind of interesting there. But let's just start. So it says, Yeshua says to her. Okay, now remember, they found him. They went to the tomb to anoint him and get him ready for burial, right? And they don't find him, right? They don't find him. They see who they think's the gardener, right? So Yeshua says to her, because they're crying, right? Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking? Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, Sir. So she really did not know it was Yeshua. She would not have said, Sir, right? Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. Yeshua said to her, Mary. She turned, and she said to him in Aramaic, Rabbi. Of course, in Aramaic, I think this is Rabboni. Or Rabboni. I don't know how exactly it's pronounced. And if you know that means teacher, right? You know that rabbi means teacher. And he was a rabbi, right? He's our rabbi. And Yeshua said to her, Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. But since you're a woman, you can't go and teach anybody anything and tell them stuff about me. Oh, wait, that isn't what he said. I'm sorry. I think I was thinking of what I was taught by different other people. Okay, let's read what he said. Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father, but go to my brothers and say to them, report my happenings. I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. Okay, that's so interesting. And that is, a lot of people find that quite confusing. Isn't he God? How is it that way, right? And that's one of the things that people argue quite a bit about, right? So I'm going to blow over that topic because we don't have time to really cover it. But yes, he's God, and yes, that's his God. Okay, so that's how I view it. So is he God, or is that his God? I would say yes. Okay, so we'll just move over that, and someday do a deep dive with that. Actually, I've heard Rico teach, and Dr. Hilsa Ailmine, excellent teaching on that as well. So go and check that out. Check out her Creation Gospel. I think that program thoroughly answers that question, and it takes a minute, and it takes some investment and some study and some commitment to building and learning what how chiasms are, and learning things and learning the way the Bible's written. It takes a little investment if you want to get a deeper understanding. That doesn't mean you have to be a perfect scholar to ever love Yeshua, right? That's not what that means. But to get into some of these deeper points, it does take an investment and a commitment. And it's the glory of God to conceal a matter and the privilege of kings to seek it out, right? So just be a king there, right? And announced to the disciples. So she obeyed him and went and told about him to the disciples, to the men. He's like, go tell the men stuff. I have seen the Lord. And that he had said these things to her. So she gave the report of the stuff. Mom, I owe you another $1, of the things he said. Okay. So then on the evening of that day, the first day of the week, the doors being locked where the disciples were for fear of the Jews, Yeshua came and stood among them. So he had risen on at the end of the Shabbat and on the first day of the week. Okay, so we got that right. And he stood among them and he said, peace be with you. When he had said this, now here he says, peace be with you. And then after he says that, he shows them his hands, which had been pierced, right? And his side, which had been pierced. Then the disciples were glad when they saw the Lord. Okay, so recently for Purim, I actually drove to Boca Raton and went to a really neat fellowship there. The Albans, if you're familiar with them, Ken and Lisa, they're really neat people, but they had a great Purim festival, like a little feast festival. Yeah, it was like a festival. There's dancing and music, and And Dr. Melissa Alewine, who's probably my main mentor, she was there, and she was teaching. And of course, I don't know if you've ever heard her teach. If you, I'm sure a lot of you have. And I always say, I don't know what's more fun, is to listen to her teach or to watch people listening to her teach, because she opens so many little hidden doors when she teaches, that just watching the people, and their just minds are blown. You know, it's just like, oh, my mind is blown. Like, that is so, I mean, there's so many amazing things that she is so gifted by the Lord to put things together and help you understand things. And she has such a way of doing that. The Father has just given her that gift. And anyway, so when she was teaching this, I was kind of making this connection. She illuminated a lot of how this connection that I made came about. She illuminated that to me, so I cannot take credit. She brought to mind, or the Lord through her, brought to mind this piece that I always wondered. So I want to share it now, because I want to connect these things, because we're going to go back into Matthew a little bit, which is earlier in the book. But this is a point I want to make, and then we're going to go back. So it says that of course, he meets Matthew at the tax booth, and he says, "Follow me." And of course, Matthew follows him, right? And then later, when he's actually eating at Matthew's house, he's having a meal there. And some other tax collectors were there, and sinners came and ate with him. So tax collectors and sinners. Now, a few weeks ago, this was the portion, and whatever the date was, go ahead and you can look. And I teach about this more, or I share what I think about this more. But it says tax collectors and sinners came and ate with his disciples. With him and his disciples. So when the Pharisees saw this, and they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with the tax collectors and the sinners?" And Yeshua is like, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, it's the sick, right? So if you already know about me, I don't need to walk among you in this moment, right? Because the news that he was sharing had to do with the partition being taken away, right? The writ of divorce, the thing that stood between anyone that might be shunned, was gone. And it was already gone at the foundation of the world, because that's when that lamb was slain. Atonement had been made, but he came for the sick, right? And so he's saying the sinners and the tax collectors are sick. He says, "But go and learn what this means." He says, "I desire mercy, not sacrifice." Now, some people might say, okay, so that's why we have no sacrificial system. Well, we do have a sacrificial system, and it's fully operational if there was a temple, but there is no temple. But since these sacrifices never replaced anything that the Messiah could do, it was never meant to. It would not cease for that reason, nor would it go on for that reason, right? These weren't, they were pictures of this, but they didn't replace anything. Okay. So when he says, "I desire mercy, not sacrifice," he's not saying don't do the sacrifices. What he was saying is, "I desire mercy, not sacrifice," speaking to this particular sect of Pharisees that didn't believe he was the Messiah and couldn't wrap their head around what they needed to, which was mercy. That they couldn't do it. So what he was saying, you know how it says, if you're holding a grudge against your fellow man, go take care of that first before your sacrifice. Because if you're going to go and do that, and you're going to be, it's the ultimate insult. I'm with you, Father, but the most important thing to you is I love my neighbor as myself in terms of this earthly realm. And then between you and me, our vertical relationship is that I worship you with everything. But the other one is just like it, very important. Even though it's not the same commandment, it's equally as important. Because he says, just like it is this: love your neighbor as yourself. So they're two separate actions: worshiping him with every single fiber of your being, and him being sovereign over your life. But second to that, and in terms of, not in terms of importance, just as important, but with a different action. Love your neighbor as yourself. So he's not saying, I don't want you to do the sacrifices as I prescribed. What he's saying to this sect of Pharisees, what I want is mercy. That goes first. If you're holding a grudge against people that I'm sitting with, because think of it, the Messiah is with us, right? So he is with us. So if he's with us, he's with them. And he says, I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners. So he's not necessarily not even calling this sect of Pharisees that they weren't righteous. He's saying you're not getting something. You're not understanding the importance of loving your neighbor as yourself, you yourself. So you can just let go of all that and let me deal with this. I am the doctor, the great physician. I'm here to fix all these sick people. Don't keep me from my mission field. Don't try to. You couldn't, right? You can't. No one can keep anybody from Yeshua or from God. I don't care what bad example you lead. Nobody has the power to actually cause somebody to believe or not believe in God. And that is just, I just completely stand by that. I am constantly reading these things where people say, we are losing our credibility because people are saying this and this and this, and it's not exactly right. And I'm like, no, you might lose some credibility. Who cares? You don't have an audience. Someone else will fill in and the gospel will go on. But the Father himself can't lose credibility because he's the one true source of all credibility. Nobody who wants the Father can be talked out of him, and no one who doesn't want him can be talked into him. It's just the way it is. It's a matter of the heart. It's not a matter of evangelism. Okay? The evangelism message was they didn't have Facebook and social media and telephones, and they had to get the good news out. What was the good news? That the wall of partition, the writ of divorce, was going to be taken away. And if you have questions about that, read my Becky book, Divorce and Remarriage in the Bible. And this explains that in detail. It's a short book. It's super cheap. Get it on Amazon. Robin Gould, I'm the author. Go ahead and read that. Read this book. And you're going to understand that. But what he's saying is, I'm here to give you news. But he's not giving anything new. He's renewing what people had kind of let go of. Not because Elohim had changed anything, but because the people needed this refresher. Okay. So he didn't come to call the righteous. They're already there. They already have, everything's good. But the sinners, they needed him. These tax collectors, these sinners, right? And then what's interesting is, you can see this in Mark and Luke. So let's see, where are we? Let's see. At that time, John's disciples, so we're talking about John here, they came to Yeshua and they asked him, they said, why is it that we and the Pharisees fast so often, but your disciples do not fast? Okay. And this is what he says. This is what Yeshua says. While Yeshua is here, how can the guest of the bridegroom mourn while he is with them? Okay, so you're at a wedding, right? And you show up to the wedding. Everyone's dressed up. Everybody has picked out a special festive, event honoring outfit. And they show up and they know there's going to be wine and a banquet. And they show up with their sackcloth and ashes, and they mourn at the wedding. Well, friends, time and a place, right? If you're going to fast and mourn, they're like, don't come to a wedding and show that off and make everybody feel bad who's celebrating a wedding, because they shouldn't feel bad for celebrating a wedding. Stay home and rip your garments and roll around in the ashes and mourn and weep if that's what you need to do at that moment. Don't go and do that at a wedding. Like, don't mix fasting with feasting. That's lukewarm. Don't do it. Have you ever gone to a wedding with a person who hates weddings? Have you ever done that before? I'm going to tell you something. I have. I sat at a wedding one time where a person showed up and hated weddings. They didn't like weddings. They thought weddings were a complete waste of money. They thought the traditions and customs of the gown and the dancing and the music and the chair and the person and the smashing of the glass and all these things. They were against everything. They hated tradition. And if people wanted to get married, they should do it while scuba diving. That would be more meaningful. Or who needs a piece of paper in a drawer in City Hall anyway? Or why would you even spend money to eat? Look at all this food. Do people need that? Is it a prerequisite that people eat? This is what I was listening to this whole wedding. And this really comes to life to me when he says this. The bridegroom's here. Why are we going to be fasting today? I'm here. Like, I am here. Celebrate this. I am here. So when I'm at that wedding, and I said, if you don't like weddings, don't go to weddings. But if you do go, let your yes be yes and your no be no. If you don't want to come, say no and stay home and revel in your smugness that you don't like other people's weddings or you think weddings are stupid. Don't click RSVP yes and then show up and be a jerk about it and complain about it, because I'm sitting there thinking, I don't want to hear this. I think her dress was beautiful. I think her gown was beautiful. I think her attendance looked lovely. I thought the music selection was lovely. The food is great. I love hanging out with people and celebrating the union of this couple, and I'm really happy. The only thing that's a bummer about this wedding is you, and it was just like rude, right? Because the people who are paying for their wedding and inviting you to celebrate with them, they aren't thinking that they're inviting you to celebrate with them. And this person, and this person is angry that of everything that you invited them to, that they've agreed to come and enjoy. Like, that's ridiculous. But anyway, that's what Yeshua is saying. The bridegroom's here. This isn't the time to mourn and fast. He says the time will come, though, when the bridegroom will be taken from them. Now, that doesn't mean he isn't volunteering himself for what he knows he's going to do. He's going to die so he can resurrect, for sure. They're going to be taken from them. He's going to be taken from them because that wasn't what they wanted. They didn't know the whole deal. But that was what he wanted. And that was going to hurt them. And he knew it. He said, then they will fast. Right? Now, what's interesting about that is when we go back to where we were originally here, look at my mouse is working. It's a new day, my friend. So what does he say in John 20:15? He says to the woman, he says, why are you weeping? So, and Halissa was really showing me this. That's such an interesting question. Why are you weeping? What he's saying, now, is that a question? It's a statement as far as I'm concerned, because what he's hearkening to is your bridegroom is back. So this isn't when we're going to weep or fast or mourn or be sad, right? Does it make sense? Who are you seeking? And she's like, she's looking for Yeshua. So I think that's fascinating, because you're seeing how the women were the first people to see him. And he was the one, and from his lips to their ears, go and tell them, teach them something they don't know about me. I did something and they don't know it. You women, please go and make a report. Not go tell a man, bring the man back. I'll tell the man. And then you go, no, the women were sent out. So people who think that all female teaching is wrong, when you kind of get that going on about like a female is not qualified, which is absolutely ridiculous. Not every female is qualified. Not every male is qualified. But anyway, that's just a little plug there for a little bit of rationale. But it's important that that when we look at these things, we understand about. So this goes into this idea of fasting. So there are times when we do fast, right? Of course, we have Yom Kippurim. We have that. So we're fasting. That's like a 24-hour fast, mandatory fast. Some people fast on other days. And there are fast days that people do for different reasons and with a different inertia, right? There's just different things that people do. And we won't get into all that. But one of one of my close dear friends, Kisha Gallagher, Grace and Torah. If you go to her website, she writes a lot about these fasts, and she writes well. And she just makes it so easy to understand. And I just love her so much for that. But that leads me to this book. This is another super cheap, very short. Look, I mean, look at that, how short that is. Yeah, it packs a punch. So this is Colossal Controversies about fasting. So I just wanted to kind of finish our time here talking about fasting, about not fasting. Okay, so I'm not talking about fasting. I'm talking about not fasting. Because Messiah is saying, I'm here, I'm the bridegroom, we're celebrating being together, and we're going to recline and eat and be together, right? Now, in the festivals and feasts of Elohim, aside from Yom Kippur, there's feasting. There's lots of it, right? There's a meal, the Passover meal that they eat that's symbolic. We always have oneg at Shabbat, good food that we prepare. Sukkot is to bring the very best of all the food. And we celebrate these things. We celebrate by feasting. Okay, we have traditional foods we serve, and we even have our minor feasts, our Purim and Hanukkah, and we have all the foods that we eat there. And it's just part of how we, food is a covenant action. You eat a meal after getting married. This was an act of covenant, right? When Abraham, made that meal for Melchizedek, this is a covenant meal, right? They're cutting a covenant. There's a lot to be said about that. But there's a lot to be said about not fasting. So in this book, Colossal Controversies, we talk about the Colossians, and we talk about the general religion from which they came into faith in Yeshua and a Torah, Elohim, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob understanding, right? Now, they came from asceticism, which is where fasting was the vehicle to holiness in terms of being approved, getting the approval of those little g gods that aren't really gods. It says that they're not really gods. They're little g gods. These are a construct of the mind. This isn't real. But what a different character that those little g gods that aren't real. What different character traits are ascribed to them in the construct is that unless you are harming yourself, you're not pleasing them. And so it takes suffering to please the Father. Now, that Greek asceticism has followed us, right? It does. Things that we learn and traditions we have and just different things, even I think goes into epigenetics. I mean, there's just a lot of different things that they just follow us around, right? We still do that on some level. We think that we have to suffer and suffer and suffer to make the Father happy. When if you look at Yom Kippur, where we're fasting, and it says to afflict yourself, okay, but what we don't understand and what we're saying here is you have a good Father that loves you, and comfort is not always the right thing for you because sometimes we are so comfortable for so long, we're deprived of understanding a lot of things. Like, let's say, for example, Yom Kippur, as I mentioned, we don't wear leather shoes, we don't drink or eat, we're not comfortable, we're uncomfortable, and we're afflicted. And we do prayers, and there's a process of getting through this and working through this and seeing, when I am, for me personally, when I'm observing Yom Kippur, I'm kind of aware of how great my life is behind my back, because my eyes, it's like I need eyes in the back of my head sometimes to see what I've really just walked through is a beautiful morning. And I'm just upset about something that might happen in the afternoon that's annoying. But I had a hot cup of coffee. I had cold water with lemon. I had, a lunch. I had a comfortable, soft bed and, clothes and, just so comfortable. do what I want, just have the day, just seize the day. I win the day, right? But Yom Kippur comes around and when I wake up, it's like, I'm not having that hot coffee. I'm not having that cold water. I'm not having this comfort because I do afflict myself on Yom Kippur. Like I don't want to use all my softest blankets. And, I just kind of feel like I want to get in touch with like a deeper part of myself, a deeper part of my understanding of myself and my surroundings. And it makes me aware of how much comfort I do get and how much, number one, I'm not grateful for it. And that's really huge every year. I am amazed at the lack of gratitude that sometimes I don't even know I operate in. And that's important, right? And thinking about people who don't have the things I have, and that's mercy for them, like in my mind. And not being able to have that dopamine response that food gives you. I have to be aware that this stimuli, is part of how I get through things. And that flesh man's strong, right? That beast part of us that eats and wants comfort. That's created that. We're created with that piece to stay alive, right? But we are to rise to that higher plane, to that upper place where our spirit man rises up. And our spirit man knows things the beast part of us doesn't understand. It understands gratitude in a, and I'm not saying your little animals aren't like so happy when you pet them. We're not animals. And that isn't really gratitude, right? But gratitude is if you read in Musar, it's a higher plane understanding. Gratitude is one of the most transformative things we could ever do, ever have in our lives. Is gratitude for the friends we have, the birds that we can hear outside, the electricity in this house, the fact that this water is right here anytime I want it. I mean, there's so many things that we are so upset about going out around us, and we should, because a lot of unrighteous things are going down. But at the same time, never lose, and I'm speaking to myself, don't lose your gratitude. Don't let that just drain out of the tub until it's dry. And for me, I do find every year I get a fresh supply of gratitude when my spirit man is aware that this beast part of me takes over a lot, seeking comfort. And I'm not saying that's bad to be comfortable. We have to be comfortable because we have jobs and children to raise and schools to go to. And, we have errands to run and lives to live, right? Services to set up for and prepare and minister to others, right? We have to eat and be comfortable. It's okay. It's awesome. But we also have to understand that comfort. And we won't understand that comfort until it is removed from us. And then we start thinking deeper. Then we don't have the comfort hormones and we go deeper. And we've already been in preparation for Yom Kippur, right? We've already been in from Rosh Hashanah, right? We're going to go into, the sweetness of Rosh Hashanah, right? And then we have those 10 days of awe where we're preparing. And we need to prepare. But it's as much as I prepare, and in some years more than others, I'm better at it. Some years more than others. When I prepare, I'm still always confronted with the shock of Yom Kippur. Every year shocks me, every year. So I need that. Thank you, Father, for instilling and prescribing deprivation of those items so I can understand how not deprived I am. That's not the only reason of Yom Kippur, but so that spirit man rises up without the creature comforts of the everyday regular. And this period of time is set apart. And here we are, Passover, and I'm just like waxing and waning over, or waxing heavily on, Yom Kippur. But the point being, this holiday is so different from that holiday, right? And in this holiday, we had friends staying with us. Simonette and her husband were here, and we had great food and great fellowship or whatever. And, but But the point I'm making is that is about fasting. We didn't fast. Now we're not eating leaven until Friday sunset because it's 7 days, right? So it was from Friday sunset. So I think that's technically for the seventh day would start Friday sunset. But for 7 full days, we don't eat leaven. So nothing leavened, right? So I have unleavened bread. So matzah is what I'm eating all week, right? All my food, everything. If I bread chicken and cook it, it's crushed up matzah, right? It's not anything with yeast and sourdough or whatever. So we're not doing that. So some people could say, boy, I never realized how, much I love, fluffy bread or whatever. Like, so there is that piece of the unleavened, but it's very symbolic of they didn't let their bread rise. What does that mean? Be ready for anything. Be ready to make do. That's okay. Unleavened bread. Now we make matzah crack with chocolate and nuts on. So good. Like, believe me, especially with the way Simonette made that, like I was not deprived. I am not deprived at all. Let me make that clear. But wait, it's amazing. It's like have your staff in your hand, your shoes on. Don't let your bread rise. You just have to go. And that is life, right? We have to be ready on a dime for the next season because when that cloud moves, you're moving with it. Or that's the will of the Father is that we're moving with that. And things can happen very quickly. And these people, as they were being delivered from slavery, there was no waiting. There was no timetable that they could say, well, wait, I just want to finish what I'm doing. No, you will go now because you're going to be delivered. And it won't be on your terms in terms of how you're delivered, but why you're delivered. Do you want this? Right? Because it was after they were delivered that the Torah was given. It's like, I've delivered you. I've shown you. I am your sustenance. I am strong. I'm a good God to give an oath to, and I'm the only God. But he delivered them first and then offered his, this pledge between this covenant. So fasting is asceticism if we are doing it to punish ourselves, thinking that makes the Father happy. But if we are not thinking about it that way, if we are fasting by prescription to move closer to our Elohim, wow, that makes me full of a different kind of food, right? That's a different kind of thing. And that is awesome. That is amazing. That isn't to make me suffer. That is to show me how much I don't suffer. Part of it, that's what I get out of it. And also so that I can be closer to Elohim. So if you think about these little g gods, they required you to go against your maternal instinct and kill your own. And then you made that thing happy and it would stop sending plagues. That's awful. Pour hot, boiling things on your skin, lay on a bed of nails, and then that makes that little g god happy with you. How does that feed a widow or an orphan? Well, you know what? When I fast on Yom Kippur, it feeds widows and orphans because I'm so much more aware of hunger. It really opens my eyes to just how much I have and how much I don't even appreciate it. And it's just amazing how that happens. A lot of people say they think that, like, I've heard this argued well, that if you were going to make a travel requirement in primary school or even secondary school, whatever, high school, whatever, for kids, that one of the things that they should make as an option and make it easy to do would be to travel to like an underdeveloped country, go to the third world and then come home and complain that you don't like your carpeting or whatever. Like, wow, right? That is a shock for Americans. I'm speaking from the United States of America. That's all I can do. But, when I go to Israel, and I used to go pretty frequently, but I haven't been since all this stuff all started. I owe my mother $3. Okay. Since everything started happening, But when I go to Israel, one of the things that, especially the first time I went, really, it struck me how comfort is just not part of the deal there. They are not obsessed and interested in comfort. They don't provide a lot of comfort, but boy, are you comforted. And I always say that to people. It's not comfortable, but it's comforting because I just love being there. But it's a different culture, right? They're not like obsessed with providing you with cinemas that lean back seats and like everything isn't like the same sanitization as everything in America. It's, a surprise to a lot of people who've never been to Israel, how there is a sense of chaos and sense of wildness to it. Like it's a very undomesticated environment. They don't have the same rails. Hey, people might just fall down those stairs, It's like, but in America, it's like, everyone's suing everybody because there was one pebble that was whatever. Like these are, no, that's not the attitude there. So it's just culturally a whole comfort just was a different thing, you know? And so, yeah, it's out in the desert. You're getting sand everywhere. You're, you know, not looking as great as you might want to. You're just kind of running from checking everything out. You can't wait to see everything. Israel's just kind of a big, huge blur of awesome, exhausting completeness. It's just this thing. So in today's Brit Hadashah segment, he is talking about, they're looking for him, and and he's like, why are you mourning? This isn't the time to mourn. Your bridegroom's with you. So he's saying to her, your bridegroom is with you. I'm me, and here I am, right? He's like, here I am. I'm here. I was taken from you, and now I'm back. And no one can ever take him again because he sends the comforter. Where that takes care of the mourning. So there's this time, these 3 days where, yeah, he was taken, but he comes back, and he did. And so this is not the time. And then he says, he told that sect of Pharisees, there is going to be a time they're going to be fasting. And he knew for 3 days. And if you've ever been really upset, and some people eat when they're emotional, they like do emotional eating. I'm the opposite of that. I can't eat when I'm upset. I will lose weight like easily in that way because it'll be like, oh, I just can't stomach food. And he's like, man, they are going to fast. They're going to fast for me to not die. They're going to fast when I'm taken away. They're going to be like, oh, they've got him prisoner. Let's fast so they don't hurt him. Let's fast so they don't. And he had to suffer those things. This was part of that plan. To be a resurrection, there has to be a death. And so I think that's interesting, the way he talked to the women. And you can connect that to when he says, when the bridegroom's with them, they're not going to be fasting, only when I'm taken away. And when he's saying, why are you weeping? Right? So powerful, right? And so a lot of these things, like we'll take a few sentences and talk about them for almost an hour, right? And a lot of people, when you're reading the Bible, and I do this sometimes too, we just kind of just read. And then when we could take something and break it down, and this is something that I've really enjoyed certain teachers teaching me about very specifically. There are just so much things that we can learn very specifically from just a few sentences that are meaningful when we hearken them back to the first time they were said. So if you ever watch like Aleph Beta, they'll talk about, or Aleph Beta, yeah. Those Dr. Rabbi Foreman, David Foreman, he'll be like, where have I heard this before? And he'll always want to go back to the law first mentioned. Where's the first time it was that we've seen this? And then a lot of times he'll be able to put these connections together, and you can find these are shared paired events, bookends of each other or whatever. And then you can see how these cycles and these patterns happen. And that's one thing that it's one of many things that Dr. Alyssa Aylwine is so good at, is finding these patterns. And she puts the patterns together. And it's fascinating, and it's interesting, and it's important. And so, yes, the bridegroom is with us. So we don't worship little g gods, right? So the idea is, don't let the people that were a part of your old world judge you when you're not a part of their world anymore. So why do you even care what they think? Of course, they're going to see you feasting away on the to please your God because that makes him happy to see you feasting away. They're called feasts, right? These rehearsals you put at point in times for to eat. They're at Sukkot and they're having dancing and music and blowing the shofar and having a great time together. And then the ascetics are like, how is this making that God happy? That would make our God, our little g God, so angry. If we enjoy ourselves too much, we better show up and do some penance. Like that's the only way to show that we truly love this person, this little g God, is through our suffering. And a lot of people don't even realize how much they've woven that into their belief system about our God. And he is nothing like that. He says suffering will come because the hardness of men's hearts. He's given us laws we're supposed to follow and we don't, and we hurt each other. That does not make him happy when you hurt yourself. He does not like that. He does not condone that. And he's not asking for that. And people who have the false self of the martyr, that's something they go through. If they're not suffering and announcing it to people and they don't feel worthy, they've taken on the identity of the martyr. And that's not healthy. That's what we learn about here with the Colossians. So let them judge you that you're not fasting because you're not even a part of that anymore. So why would you care of their opinion of you? Here, the only people that can judge you are the people who know the Messiah, right? The body of the Messiah can judge you because they understand. He doesn't want you to mourn. He doesn't want you to grieve. He knows you will, but that's not his goal for your life, that you're living in mourning and grief and fasting and pouring hot oil on yourself. That's not what he wants. It's inevitable. It's a hard world and we have a rough time on this planet sometimes, for sure. No doubt. Like it's really, 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 really hard. Some days harder than others. Some days are amazing and you just have that day. And you're just like, oh, I love this day. So we don't want to treat our Elohim, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, like these little g gods of the Greek construct. We don't want to do that. We don't want to ascribe those characteristics of these fake things to the actual Father, who says to love me with everything you are and love your neighbor as yourself. And you're not going to pour hot wax on your neighbor. I mean, I would hope not, right? These are important concepts that we don't ascribe Greek theology onto a Hebrew God. Like that's just not okay. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't a lot of really great things that Greeks have done, right? I really enjoy Greek food. I think Greece is gorgeous and beautiful. I know Greek people and they're so awesome and nice. And I think to say everything Greek is bad is completely wrong. Not every tradition in our faith system is completely right? So I'm not doing that, right? We're not dividing people. Everybody is who they are. If they want to, you do you, boo, right? Don't sin and don't be upset about these. Don't have anti-Semitism and these traditions were well fought for and well placed and well healed things. And I get so sick of people just trying to put all that down and feeling righteous over that, whatever. No, routines and habits and traditions are very good ways to observe things communally and to understand and how to pace things ourselves. So that's a part of this thing. But I want to talk about not fasting today instead of fasting, because we're in the time of unleavened bread. We're feasting on unleavened bread. We're ready, but we're eating. We've got our staff. We're waiting for the call, right? Well, the call is here, right? We know we are ministers of reconciliation. We are going to be answering the call. So anyway, I do hope that this was helpful to you. And I'm going to look real quick here. I don't have the comments on, and so that's okay. I find it a little distracting. I used to go through some comments and it was just like always derailing me because I would forget my point. And then I would like rewatch the part of it to be able to do the part two next week, for the next week. And I'd be like, oh, I forgot what I was saying. I never even got to my point. Because I was getting sidetracked. But it's because people ask such awesome questions, actually, most of the time. Anyway, I'm glad that you're here. I hope this was helpful. I hope it brought some light to you. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm looking forward to having another talk with you when we meet again. And I am so excited to continue to pursue our studies together. And I guess until we meet again, the future begins now. Bye.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.